Hello, everybody, and welcome to let's say, wild edition of Q&A. How do I set prices when I have little idea about what the competition charges? Well, when you're a solo provider or a startup, you're always missing a lot of data. This has been a common frustration for me when I wrote business plans back in the day. That's how my career started. But what I found is that because your customers are humans, and humans in this day and age tend to skim information, a lot of value can be derived by trying to form a caricature of the market rather than the full portrait, let's say. So to see what's uh, to see what's sticking out, there are many methods, right? Sticking out. What features of the market, when exaggerated, inform clients? What do they see when they just skim? And there are many methods, but Google yourself badly is a favorite of mine. Has been popular on social media. Try to describe a movie badly. So Die Hard would be a guy really wanted to get on the roof of a building or something like that. So there's value in trying to describe what you do that badly and Googling that and seeing what sticks out, who will catch on to these, let's say, keywords, who will the people see, and what features they will jump and grab their eyelids. And you will never Google everything. You will never see everything they see. You don't have to. You don't have to see a portrait in order to grasp how it looks. That's the beauty of a good caricature. You only need the prominent features and you will get it, right? You will get 80% there with like 5% of the effort and 1% of the cost. And that's good enough because usually no client of ours will spend endless hours researching the market. They don't have time for that, and they don't have the knowledge for that. So the more in depth you go, the less and less is that the picture that your clients actually see. The less and less representative of what they see. So skimming only actually produces better understanding of your market, of how your clients see the market, not how you see it, than doing or paying for, even worse, some in-depth scenarios, right? So some things you can solve with classic market research, but that's usually in the consumer business. That's usually in the mass market. In the niches, in some specialty expert work, usually no, that doesn't work. Some people are just not going to tell you stuff. Somebody calls you on the phone and says, excuse me, how many times a day do you brush your teeth? I mean, even that doesn't work, right? 3 times a day, of course, and after every meal. I'm doing it right now. Anyway, try Googling yourself badly. You may get horrified, but you will get informed.
I do, absolutely. First, I want to say that I love your virtual green screen behind.
Yeah. It's lovely.
That's really classy. And so my question was this. I delivered a workshop this morning in my area of expertise, which is LinkedIn, to a group of business owners. And whenever I do that, I often find that the audience is comparing me with all the previous LinkedIn presenters they've heard of, seen, that their friends have heard of, that was there at a different Chamber of Commerce event or whatever it might be. And I get the feeling that I'm being compared to an amateur. And I don't regard myself as extraordinary. I just don't regard myself as average. I don't aspire to be average. My clients aren't average, and the experience I live with them isn't average. So how do I set myself apart from amateurs, basically?
Yeah, thanks for that. That's a question I often get. Well, for starters, The consideration of whether or not you're an amateur is usually not on top of your target market's priorities, even if it should be. So step one, in my opinion, is illustrating why they should actually care if you're an amateur or a professional. Because I know you know why they should care, but they don't, usually. So this is achieved by hopefully seeing and then helpfully pointing out, usually trivial, maybe, to you, a usually trivial pitfall that the client is about to obliviously step into. So if you just continue what you're doing right now, the next pitfall that you're going to fall into is this one, and then that one. And then, well, there's like dozens more, but we only have time for these two today. And
okay, so tell me how to do this. How do I tell people that they're wasting their time on LinkedIn? That the actual activity they're doing, their posts, etc., they're basically talking to themselves. How do I do that in a positive way so that people don't take offense and feel like idiots? Because that's not my intention. What I'm trying to do is what you just said. Here's a pitfall. Here's what you're falling into.
Yeah. I think they already know that. So you can say, no, they already know that, but they're hoping that they're wrong. So in the example that you said, so you can say, how many contacts do you have on LinkedIn? Right. And how many of them are your actual clients? So what? You spend 2 hours a day on LinkedIn, 1 hour a day on LinkedIn to get how many clients a year? Yeah, that's one of the pitfalls.
Yes.
Because it feels like constructive work. I'm doing something, right?
Yes. Yes.
But in expert services, I'm always trumpeting around that. But you know, if I'm digging a ditch, there's a hole. If I've been digging for an hour a day for a year, there's a big hole. If I've been talking to, as you say, myself on LinkedIn, usually I have nothing to show for it, but it doesn't feel unusual. If there was no hole there, I would assume I was sleepwalking or something. I was dreaming that I'm digging a hole. If I'm digging a hole, where's the hole? I mean, yes, yeah.
It's interesting. It makes me think of this. It's a bit like the analogy with wine. Just because somebody says that the bottle of wine is exceptional, doesn't necessarily make it so. It might tempt you to try it, but ultimately the test is in the taste for you. And what I'm hearing you say, I think from a marketing perspective, is the same thing. Just because I think you should be doing this on marketing, and I supposedly am a marketing expert, the only question is it working for you?
Yeah.
Getting the results you want?
Yes. I mean, pointing out pitfalls provides value upfront, and to your audience, like your audience this morning. And this you can actually say, or it just by showing them one pitfall, it hints that there may be more. And if those other people who talked to them about it didn't do that, well, that paints a very stark contrast between you and them. It's like the first time that a butcher you visit says, yeah, these look good, but leave them as they are, right? I'm going to recommend you this. This I'm not going to sell to you. It's not good. The next time that he says, look, Paul, this is an excellent piece of meat, you will trust him much more.
Yes, that makes sense. particularly if you walk in, like in my culture, and say, I'm having a braai on the weekend, a barbecue, and so I'm having
Yeah,
this kind of event, and then you say, no, for that you need this kind of meat because that kind of
exactly.
meat's too thin or something. Or yeah.
Exactly. And if they say yes, everything, you all is good. Um, so most amateurs don't know the pitfalls or don't know how to communicate the pitfalls. So you don't have to say don't compare me to amateurs. They will see the difference simply because you don't say everything is great, just continue clicking. You say this is a pitfall and this is a pitfall. Okay? If you want to know more, get in touch.
Yeah. No, I mean,
So
you're absolutely right. One of the other pitfalls that I don't point out often enough is the question, okay, so you're doing some marketing activity. The only point that counts is the result. And so how is it filling your pipeline? Oh, you don't have a pipeline? Okay, well, maybe let's start there.
okay. Is your question answered?
Absolutely. So identify the pitfalls up front in a subtle way. Because I was thinking the way I could do that in what you said is, okay, good. So question one is write down the number of connections you have on a piece of paper. The piece of paper I've given you. Good. Now write down the number of clients and work out the ratio. Okay, now work out how many hours you spend a week, a month on. Right. Does that sound like a worthwhile activity? They're your numbers, so it has to make sense for you.
Yes.
Because I can always point out that most people can't answer that question. They don't know the number.
Yeah, and that's alarming.
Yes, and for me, that in that particular context, given my bias, the only right answer to how many of your connections are your clients is not enough.
Yeah. I fully agree. How do I price my service if what I provide is very unique and cannot really be compared with the competition because there is none? Okay, so competition is a blurry word. Who exactly is your competition and who is not is always an open question. So I prefer the economic term substitute. So, okay, no software in the world does what yours does, but half of the human secretaries do that. So you don't have competition, but you have substitutes, potato, right? There are other ways in which people think they can solve the same problem. That means you have substitutes. It doesn't matter if you have competition or not. So getting compared with substitutes, it's simply not a choice. You know how they say not making a choice is also a choice. So not comparing yourself to anybody else doesn't help because it doesn't matter if you do that. Your or you think it should be done. Your clients will compare you to substitutes, even to a completely silly degree. So if they understand very little about what you do, and that's often the case, they will say, what, you're a surgeon? Oh, you cut people for money. Yeah. I know a butcher down the street. He's cheaper than you. I mean, so this was a made up example, but one that is not. I worked with people who provide psychological help, usually to older midlife phase women who got everything what they thought they would need in life. So a career and a family and this and that, and they're still unhappy. And while working with them, we talked about competition. And then I said, okay, but what about soothsayers, crystal ball readers, palm readers? So What about them? Well, who goes to them? Yeah, okay. Mostly women. Why? Because they're unhappy. That sounds like a substitute to me. And they got pretty upset about that because they said, well, soothsayers can't help them, I can. And I said, yes, but you know that. Do all of your clients know that? No. To them, it sounds basically the same. You can't choose if you're going to be compared. But you can greatly influence who they compare you with if you work at it. So you can point out that in that last example, when you communicate that, look, if you're going to let somebody rummage around in your subconscious, you really want them to have a diploma. Somebody else saying, yes, these people are qualified for this. And people will usually say yes. That makes sense. And the next time that somebody says, you know, I met a really good palm reader, maybe you should see her, they will have a much better defense on saying, yeah, I might do that for fun, but I know that's not going to help. Even if you think you can't be compared, you can. Even if you objectively can't be compared, you still will be compared. So it's better to cut that off and set people, tell people who you should be compared with, because that's better.
I find that in my space, like in the LinkedIn space, it's like, okay, so then you do advertising and no, I don't do advertising. No automation, no advertising, no algorithm. And so that helps distinguish. And I find that obviously doesn't appeal to some people, but then they're probably not my clients.
Yeah. It's good to say that upfront, because they have assumptions, and as soon as you say LinkedIn, they're trying to figure out what they should exclude. They're not really listening, they're just trying to categorize you. So saying that upfront helps. I don't do this, and this. Oh, okay. So what do you do?
Yes. And also I think in LinkedIn space, like with many others, it's has a bad reputation. It's like,
yes.
Okay, so how are you going to try and rip me off? And it's just
yes.
full of spam and whatever it might be. It's not.
Yes. So I think we're going to tie this one in as well, really well. Is pricing really a part of marketing or sales? See, it's all a little blurry. More than a little, actually. And I would always say marketing, of course, not in an advertising sense, of course, but in preparing yourself to deal with the marketing sense. So it's the difference between needs, wants, and demand, right? I may have a need, but if I have no idea that you're providing some answers for it, I don't have a want to buy what you're selling. So marketing is usually moving people from need to want, and then sales from an existing want to actual demand. So people are confused about this, and when they hear that you do marketing, they conflate all of the things into that. But I mean, pricing is usually a part of the preparing for the hunt and not hunting. And I think preparing for the hunt is always marketing, while actual hunting is sales. So you talking to people about their problems is never sales, unless it's specifically stated to be so. You were not there this morning to sell. You were there to raise awareness. Then maybe some of them would continue the conversation with you, and maybe some of them, those conversations would then convert into sales. How do I make my value proposition less nebulous to clients who have no idea about what I really do? Good question. First thing, don't talk about your work and your processes. Talk about your outcomes, their outcomes, the outcomes that you're going to provide to them. Don't use numbers to list the inputs and outputs. I'm going to take this many hours, or you're going to have this many, I don't know, words get out, or this many clicks or whatever, because you open yourself to haggling. Instead, ask about their desired outcomes, even if you know them, even if you know what they want. It's better if they say it. Then set a price to deliver those outcomes and leave the inputs and outputs vague. Usually, if their goal is achieved, nobody cares about the inputs and outputs. Nobody cares how many pages that is. Nobody cares how many calls that is. As soon if they're getting their outcome, their value, usually nobody cares how you got them, as long as it's legal. But you know what I mean. And then use numbers to solidify your claims. So instead of saying, I have a lot of experience in this or that, say I have, I already worked with 17 clients, 120 clients. I already solved 60 problems like this. I worked with 11 industries like this. So that's better than saying I have a lot of experience. So that's what I mean by solidifying. And in that way, when you concentrate on the outcomes, you basically communicate your value in a much better way. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, especially Paul, for appearing on camera. I will see you in a week without the illustrious background.
Everything changes.